Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and tonight I'm going to be reviewing Sonic the Hedgehog 2, reviewed from the Sega Genesis Classics collection on the Nintendo Switch. So most of you who have watched the statistics of my channel know that one of the most watched video game reviews I ever did was my 3D Sonic the Hedgehog 2 review with my best friend Andy, known as Engineer for God here on YouTube. But the thing is, as much as I liked that review, it was mostly him doing the talking because, as you all are probably tired of hearing by now, I am not that great at Sonic games, despite that I'm doing a playthrough of Sonic Mania. What an irony, huh? But yet, Sonic was also a huge part of my childhood, and so being able to relive this game on the Nintendo Switch was a blast of pure joy, especially with the additions that this game, as well as every game in the Sega Genesis Classics pack, has to offer. Now, when playing it on the Switch, I have the ability to rewind time for a bit if I make a mistake, which, yes, I'm not ashamed to admit that I use, because I am so terrible. You can also create up to 4 save files, and save wherever you want. There's also leaderboards, online play, and you can also have achievements for each game. Other than that, though, this is pretty well preserved from the Genesis days. While some of the sound effects may not sound exactly as you remember them, most of the time, this is a faithful representation of what it was like to play Sonic in the 90s. Now, enough talking about the improvements. Let's talk about what's in the actual game. So, for starters, this is pretty much a faster version of the original Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic moves with what's called blast processing, which allows the game to actually feel like Sonic is going really quickly. And even to this day, you'd be hard-pressed to find a video game protagonist, or protagonist in any form of fiction, that goes faster than Sonic does way back in 1992. Just let that sink in for a minute. This game introduced the spin dash that instead of trying to create your own momentum, Sonic could create it himself by revving in place. And that would allow him to go quickly without having to go up a certain way to build up Sonic's movement, etc. This also debuted Miles Prower, more commonly known as Tails. The creator wasn't exactly too fond of that Americanized nickname, so to compromise, they introduced him as Miles Tails Prower at the title screen. And pretty much no one remembers that. Unless you played 3D Sonic the Hedgehog 2, in which you do have the option to play the international version, which does address him as Miles Prower. Don't know how they pronounce it, but that's how it worked. In addition to that, all the complaints that I had about the original Sonic are pretty much removed here. The levels are much more open and not as cramped as before, so there's a lot more space to jump around and find shortcuts. Also, the special stages are much better, albeit they're still not perfect. As iconic as they are, if you've played real 3D games and go back to this, it might give you a bit of a headache trying to go through a fake 3D half-pipe. Not only that, but with Tails helping you, it makes the boss battles, well, for the most part, pretty much a lot easier, because Tails, when he's simply an AI-controlled opponent, he can sometimes hit the boss in your stead, or hit other enemies, and that can be slightly helpful. And if that's not enough, you can also play co-op. Have one person play as Tails and the other as Sonic. Now, the game greatly favors Sonic over Tails, so much so that if Tails gets left behind by Sonic's immense speed, the game will just put him off screen. There is a cooperative or competitive versus mode that you can play as, where Sonic and Tails race through a course with different items to help offset if someone is being too good, but I didn't really like that mode too much, so I'm going to primarily talk about the single-player mode. In short, the game gives you an option to play together with your friend, and while it's definitely a bit on the one-sided section, the fact that it's there at all is a welcome improvement. Like I've said in most of my reviews, some options are better than none. So, Sonic 2 is a vast improvement over the original Sonic. It may be kind of hard for those who haven't really played a Sonic game. I couldn't even get past this zone when I initially played it on the Sonic Mega Collection. But suffice to say that with all of the new additions, I feel like even someone as bad as me at Sonic can really enjoy themselves. And I like how the 2D Sonics offer a perfect mix of both speed, but also careful platforming at times, where you have to slow down and think things through. Do I think this is better than Sonic Mania? Absolutely not. In fact, I don't even think this is better than Sonic 3 and Knuckles. But I do think that this is definitely one of the better aged 2D Sonics, because despite what a lot of people may believe, they haven't aged perfectly. But this game has aged pretty well. The music is catchy, the controls are fine, and while the underwater sections are such a pain, especially the parts where the blocks will like crush you out of nowhere, other than that, when the game is on the ground, it performs admirably, despite the occasional slowdown here and there. And with that, if there is any way you can experience this, I would highly recommend it. I also would highly recommend the Sega Genesis Classics to begin with, but since you're getting this game as a bonus, well, I guess take it or leave it, however you want to interpret that. Either way, Sonic 2 is a great addition to the 2D platforming genre, and games could definitely learn a lot from how this game does everything with just one button. It definitely helps keep things simple and newbie-friendly, while at the same time providing complex level design that gives you an immense amount of freedom in how you want to tackle the courses. With that, I think this game is definitely worth a buy, as the prices are very reasonable nowadays. With that, thank you very much for watching. If I missed anything or if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and good for you if you can actually beat this without rewinding as I did. Bye!